What should you do if you are loved by twin sisters at the same time? Who wouldn't want such good fortune, just like the male protagonist? When June was a child, a new family moved in next door. They had twin daughters the same age as June. Rumi, one of the twins, quickly fell for June, seeing him as the most handsome guy around. He was good-looking and smart, always seen with a book in his hands. However, June had a better relationship with Naori, the other twin, as she also loved reading and was curious about various subjects. Rumi would often find June and Naori happily discussing topics she couldn't understand, like a book on human anatomy, featuring ultrasound images of babies. Despite her attempts, Rumi couldn't join their conversation, but June's passionate explanation only drew her in more. As the children grew, Rumi and Naori became nearly indistinguishable in appearance and stature, recognizable only by their mother and June. Even their father sometimes got them mixed up. They often played together in the park, where June and Naori each swung on a swing. When Rumi approached to ask June about his current reading, he mentioned Haruki Murakami. Just then, a friend called Rumi over. When she left, Naori teased June about whether Murakami's Norwegian wood was very risque, making him blush, much to her delight. From a distance, Rumi saw their interaction and knew they got along better. In fact, June was always chasing after Naori. In elementary school, Naori, being quirky, caught the attention of a group of delinquent girls. A girl approached Rumi to inform her, but Rumi believed Naori wouldn't care much. Still, she confronted the leader of the delinquents to stand up for her sister, but they mocked her and walked away. Later, Rumi was called by friends to Naori's classroom, where Naori and the delinquent girl stood face to face, with June mediating. He had Naori apologize to her classmate, who reluctantly accepted and was prompted by June to apologize louder. Afterwards, the delinquent girl also apologized to Rumi, mending their relations. As June walked away, he appeared taller and more impressive in Rumi's eyes. Her fondness for him grew, and it never faded as they got older. Eventually, they entered middle school. Due to shyness, Rumi talked less with June, who conversed more with Naori, and they often walked home together. One evening, after doing her makeup, Rumi texted June to join her at the convenience store. She also asked Naori if she needed anything. Naori requested pudding. After shopping, Rumi and June passed the park they used to play in as children. Feeling nostalgic, Rumi pulled June to sit down. She mentioned that Naori had taken an interest in an author named either Marquez or Marx and wanted June's opinion. June guessed it might be Marquez, although he hadn't read his books yet. Naori had recommended Elroy's The Black Dahlia to him, which he planned to read. Noticing June's happiness when discussing Naori, Rumi felt she might lose her chance if she didn't confess her feelings. Deciding to be straightforward, she asked June if he wanted to try dating her, using the excuse of gaining experience, since they were soon starting high school. Fearful of rejection, Rumi made up various reasons. June's silence saddened her. Seeing this, June gently confirmed if she truly wanted to date him. After Rumi nodded, he agreed, and they began a trial period of dating. However, Rumi wasn't entirely happy. When facing her sister Naori, she felt both superiority and guilt. But time spent with June washed away the guilt. Rumi thought they were a perfect match, an athletic, cheerful guy, and the top student in their grade. Yet June never fully acted like Rumi was his girlfriend. He would walk fast alone on the street until Rumi caught up, and he would then reach out to hold her hand. Their redeeming moment was when they kissed at the aquarium. Gradually, they started to act like a real couple, secretly meeting and kissing in stairwells. Though no one except them knew about their relationship, this did not include Naori. Rumi shared details of her dates with June when she returned home, even though she knew Naori also liked him. Rumi realized she was being a bad sister, but felt helpless about the situation. This evening, Rumi once again put on her makeup and invited June to meet at the convenience store. It was another snowy day, and they sat on the same park bench. This time, Rumi broke up with June and did not give him any chance to reconcile. From Naori's perspective, the situation was quite different. Originally, when she was picked on by that group, she sarcastically mocked those silly girls. She knew she was different from others since childhood, possessing a maturity beyond her years. Thus, she never forced herself to play with them. However, she still encountered a scene where her sister stared down two boys who spoke ill of her. Other than her sister, June was the only special one. It was June who pulled her back to reality, teaching her the value of living grounded in the real world. It was at that moment Naori realized she had fallen for June. Naori was knowledgeable but never managed to surpass June, who was top of their grade. While talking with June and another boy, she claimed she only liked men who were superior to her. At that moment, Rumi joined them. Naori had known since childhood that her sister liked June, so she never expressed her feelings to him. Doing so would jeopardize their harmonious relationship, and Naori didn't want to lose either of them. She also had the potential to be top of the grade, but always rushed through exams, aiming to finish first without reviewing, thinking it would be more interesting to win that way. The real reason she kept to herself was a challenge she had set. If she could finish the exams first and come out on top, she would confess her feelings to June. Unfortunately, she had not achieved this yet, and thus had not confessed. When Rumi suddenly told her that she was dating June, Naori felt upset, yet forced a smile, saying they were a perfect match. Knowing Rumi wanted to keep their relationship a secret, she helped conceal it, only crying when alone. The next day, she would act as if nothing had happened, even giving her sister dating advice. She was torn about wanting to hear and not wanting to hear about their dates, and couldn't help but imagine their conversations. June, with his encyclopedic knowledge, and the sincere and cheerful Rumi, seemed like a perfect match. However, that day, her sister suddenly told her that she and June had broken up and June had agreed to it. Rumi felt very happy about it, grateful for the beautiful memories she could cherish. She even needed to thank Naori for helping them keep their relationship a secret. Naori, however, just silently called her a fool in her mind. What will become of these three now? See you in our next video. This is definitely the most tragic male protagonist in a romance series. Both twin sisters are in love with him, and it seems he should happily welcome them both into his harem. However, he ends up being mercilessly toyed with by the two sisters. The June family and the Rumi Naori family are on good terms and often dine together. The fathers engage in lively conversations while the mothers and Rumi sit on one side, with June and Naori on the other. Rumi, having recently broken up with June, watches him getting along well with her sister, feeling quite bitter inside. Eventually, June joins the adults' conversation, leaving Naori bored and moving over to the ladies' table. This leads to Naori watching her sister staring at June with her chin propped on her hands, both harboring their own schemes. Ultimately, Naori decides to return to June's side, while Rumi remains like an outsider. That night, she asks June for a breakup. June, panicked and hurried, asks why, clearly not wanting to break up. Rumi simply says it's not because she dislikes him, then asks him to date her sister instead, as she alone cannot satisfy June. But Naori only wants June. June is completely dumbfounded, feeling like a pawn in the sisters' play. Before a barbecue with both families, Rumi has yet to hear about June and Naori dating. Upon learning from her mother that a family barbecue is planned the day after tomorrow, Rumi is asked to help prepare, and is also chided for being lazy. Her mother then asks Rumi to check if June would like stir-fried noodles. Reluctantly, Rumi heads to June's house before school and finds his parents about to leave. June's mother casually asks Rumi to wake her son and reminds him to have dinner alone since the parents have a date. After they leave, Rumi enters June's room, watches him sleep, and almost kisses him before realizing they had broken up. Ultimately, she does nothing but opens the curtains. Awakened by the sunlight, June opens his eyes to see Rumi, creating an awkward atmosphere. June goes to wash up silently, and Rumi, seizing the moment, lies on his bed, immersing herself in June's scent and mentally reassuring herself that she's not a stalker. Despite wanting to stay together, she feels helpless. Before June returns, she gets up from the bed, pretending nothing happened, and conveys his parents' message. Then she asks what he wants for the barbecue finale. June says anything is fine. After these trivial matters, Rumi finally addresses the main issue, demanding to know when June plans to date Naori. June doesn't want to respond, feeling harassed by his ex-girlfriend, questioning why she should dictate his romantic life, especially the absurd idea of dating the sister right after breaking up. Rumi, however, is persistent, explaining that she broke up with him so he could date Naori. If they don't date, what was the point of their breakup? Rumi even confesses Naori's feelings for June on her sister's behalf, June is somewhat surprised, but not entirely. What's the point of saying these things now? His relationship was with Rumi, not Naori. Seeing her advice fail, Rumi directly embraces June tightly, and they almost kiss uncontrollably. But then Rumi suddenly stops, picturing her sister, and pleads with June to date Naori. On the other hand, Naori was completely unaware of the situation. She slept in until noon before coming downstairs and casually chatted with her father about Star Trek. After pouring herself some water and returning to the dining table, she found her father had sneakily eaten her food, which instantly made her not want to deal with him. Just as she was feeling hungry, she received a message from June inviting her to go out for a walk, which Naori gladly accepted. Since June had broken up with her sister, she felt he seemed quite vulnerable and decided it was her duty to keep him company. Naori dressed up and went to June's house, where she was astonished to hear that June wanted to go see a movie. Normally, June didn't like crowded places, but since he was offering, she was happy to join him. On the way to the cinema, their conversation never faltered. They instantly connected over every movie and book mentioned, and their discussions were lively and enjoyable, even when they argued. Naori was so excited that she almost fell, but June caught her just in time. At the cinema, Naori asked if her sister had contacted June since Rumi had been going out during the holiday. June was unaware of Rumi's whereabouts. The movie soon started, and Naori critically watched it, internally giving it a barely passing grade, while June was thoroughly engrossed. After the movie, their discussion continued as they walked along the riverbank. Naori brought up the first time she met June as a child, teasing him about showing signs of being a subculture brat back then. June, embarrassed to discuss his past with someone he liked, listened as Naori went on until he finally begged for mercy, leaving Naori triumphant. They ended up resting on a bench because it was getting dark. June bought Naori a drink and asked if her legs were cold. Naori bragged that she was a high school girl who wore skirts even in winter, so the temperature didn't bother her at all. She provocatively crossed her legs, showing off the curve where her over-knee socks met her skin, and asked June what he thought. June couldn't look directly at her, comparing Naori to Irene Adler from Sherlock Holmes, which he meant as the highest compliment, but Naori took it as sarcasm. During their playful argument, June suddenly remembered Rumi's request and gathered the courage to ask Naori if she wanted to date him. Naori smiled, then firmly refused, saying her mother had taught her never to get involved with Star Trek and Sherlock Holmes fans. June looked visibly disappointed, but it turned out Naori was just joking. She had planned for years to say those lines if June ever confessed to her, fulfilling a long-held dream. Besides, how could she possibly refuse June? Relieved, June finally relaxed, and Naori playfully teased him as they officially became a couple. Naori opened her arms for a hug, and June expertly swept her into his embrace. After coming home in the evening, Naori asked her sister to come to her room before going to sleep. Rumi seemed to have sensed something and promptly agreed. After finishing the household chores with their mother, she went to Naori's room. Naori immediately told her sister that June wanted to date her. Rumi expressed happiness for her sister, but showed a surprised look when Naori mentioned she had turned him down again, though this was just a joke. However, the sisters did not continue the conversation along those lines. Rumi commented that Naori's legs were a bit chubby and suggested they go jogging together in the future. Naori instantly refused, adding that many boys liked girls who were a bit chubby like her. 2 days later, during a joint family barbecue, after everyone had eaten their fill, Rumi took on the household duties while the two fathers continued to chat. June and Naori joined in the conversation. Later, as June was helping his drunken father get ready to go home, he asked Rumi to tell their aunt that the noodles were delicious. Both Naori and Rumi's father expressed their reluctance to see them leave, remarking how great it would be if June could become their son-in-law, allowing them to talk more. June's father, suddenly sobering up, agreed that would be wonderful. Naori also showed a look of anticipation, but June promptly changed the subject. While Rumi was busy wiping the table, Naori chased after June, probably wanting to spend more time with her boyfriend. The next day, Rumi went to a club activity, and Naori went to June's room. She brazenly lay on his bed and read a book, inviting June to lie down beside her. June couldn't refuse. Once he lay down, Naori naturally rested her head on his arm. They discussed the books and movies they had read and watched. June always admired Naori's reading ability and tried to keep up with her. Naori, surprised by this, then felt the urge to kiss him. She turned June toward her and moved in for a kiss. I just broke up with the older of the twin sisters and started dating the younger one. Even her best friend is upset on Rumi's behalf, thinking Rumi's inexplicable guilt is unnecessary. She questions whether enduring silently can truly make everyone happy, including Rumi herself. After all, how can someone unhappy themselves make others happy? Rumi was speechless and accidentally brought up June. Seeing how much she likes June, her friend suggested she think about it from a different angle. Since she has now helped June get together with her sister, she might consider it her redemption. Thus, if June breaks up with Naori and confesses to Rumi, she shouldn't feel guilty and can accept freely. Moreover, this friend never really liked Naori, thinking she is quite manipulative, but that's irrelevant. She advised Rumi to make the most of being in the same class as June and get to know him better. Meanwhile, June was chatting with a close friend when Naori naturally joined in, discussing various adult topics unabashedly. Essentially, it was Naori and June's friend talking, as June was too shy to speak. Eventually, they planned a movie night for the weekend, including June. Just then, Rumi reminded them that lunch break was over. Naori showed her impatience, said goodbye, and returned to her class, as did Moriwaki, who had been sitting in Rumi's spot. Rumi was clueless about their conversation topics, like why Moriwaki's nickname was Professor, a name Naori gave because it sounded close to Moriarty, who is a professor. Hearing June mention Naori again, Rumi suppressed her discomfort, noting Naori's penchant for nicknaming. Naori had friends in their class too, and got along well with one girl in particular. While chatting, her friend suggested Naori start exercising to avoid widening the physical gap with her sister. This upset Naori, so to cheer her up, her friend proposed karaoke as a fun way to burn calories. After school, they set off. Naori texted her boyfriend June, who was alone today and went to a friend's house for a movie. This friend was a typical otaku with sexy posters and adult films everywhere, like the one on his bed that captivated June at first sight because the actress looked just like Naori. Moriwaki had bought all her films, admitting his crush on Naori, even confessing to her in middle school shortly after they met through June. June asked Moriwaki what he liked about Naori. Without hesitation, Moriwaki replied, her face and chest. But now, that was in the past. June finally understood why some girls called Moriwaki a jerk who only aimed for physical attractiveness, a label Moriwaki even took pride in. Then they discussed June's love life. Moriwaki couldn't understand why June initially dated Rumi, the older sister. He would have chosen the younger sister right away. June was surprised that everyone knew Naori liked him except himself. So when he asked Naori out, and she accepted, he was shocked. Moriwaki, envious, wondered when he would ever be liked by both twin sisters, not even understanding what June was troubled about, especially since June originally liked Naori. But June said that was history. Since dating Rumi, he had gradually started to love her and still had feelings for her, even now. Rumi had suggested he date Naori, which was why June was so distressed. The more Moriwaki heard, the more irritated he became, wishing he could have June's luck. But it was June's personal matter, and seeking advice was pointless. Meanwhile, Rumi was practicing basketball at her club and accidentally twisted her wrist. That evening, with June's family working the night shift, he went to the sister's house for dinner. Naori came downstairs and mentioned her sister wouldn't join them for dinner. Concerned, Jun asked what happened. Their father told him Rumi had sprained her left wrist during club activities and had been sulking in her room since. The father thought it wasn't a big deal, but their mother understood Rumi's effort to become a regular player in her first year and how she couldn't play basketball now. Naori made a sarcastic comment about dancing in front of Rumi's door, which even her mother couldn't stand. June wanted to talk to Rumi. Hearing his voice, she opened the door. The room was dim, and Rumi felt sad and guilty, believing she couldn't achieve anything. Now with a wrist injury, she was sure she couldn't be a regular player. June comforted her, knowing she had always worked hard and seriously. Although he rarely participated in club activities, the least he could do was lend his shoulder for her to cry on. Overwhelmed, Rumi couldn't suppress her feelings anymore, questioning why she couldn't succeed despite her efforts. As June touched Rumi's face, they were about to kiss when Naori's voice suddenly came from outside. Rumi immediately opened the door, and both she and June walked out. Naori, fully aware of what had happened inside, said nothing. The atmosphere at the dinner table was harmonious yet awkward, with Rumi avoiding looking at June and June avoiding Naori's gaze. The next day, June and Naori went to school together. Naori talked non-stop behind June, who remained silent and did not really listen to what his girlfriend was saying. During the break, Naori peeked into the classroom through the door, where Moriwaki spotted her and told her June was not there. Still, he invited her in to sit. Moriwaki had already heard from June that he was dating Naori. Naori knew it was more about seeking advice from Moriwaki than just reporting the relationship. She was aware of what June had been troubled about, having grown up together. Curious, Moriwaki asked how she felt about June during their childhood. Naori admitted she always thought June was closer to her sister. They often spent time together. Hearing this, Moriwaki realized Naori believed June's first love was Rumi and was unaware that June had liked her since they were children. Meanwhile, June and Rumi were in the stairwell. Even though he was dating Naori, June confessed to Rumi that he could not forget her. Rumi told him to stop, pointing out that he and Naori were in love and it was better this way. Understanding why Rumi insisted on breaking up, June felt crushed. He sadly told Rumi that he indeed liked Naori, but first love is first love. He had always liked Rumi since they started dating. But now, what was the use of saying all this? Rumi had never heard June say he liked her, nor felt his emotions. Their relationship was over. On the other side, Naori was crying on the desk, finally determined to resolve everything herself.